Imagine an ocean so completely devastated that almost nothing recognizable survived. Around 252 million years ago, that nightmare became reality. Nearly 96% of all marine species disappeared in the most catastrophic extinction event our planet has ever witnessed. Entire ecosystems collapsed, food chains broke apart, and for a brief moment in Earth's history, the seas were left eerily empty. But what happened next was even more extraordinary. Evolution didn't restore the old ocean, it built an entirely new one. Within just a few million years, reptiles that had once walked on land began returning to the water. Only 8 million years later, massive predators were already hunting prey nearly as large as themselves. New rulers emerged in seas that no longer belonged to the old world. One remarkable fossil discovered in China captures a terrifying moment frozen in time. It preserves a predator that attempted to swallow another animal almost its own size. The struggle proved fatal for both, leaving them locked together for 240 million years. Another Triassic creature evolved a neck longer than the rest of its body, confusing scientists for generations before its true identity was finally understood. And as the Triassic period drew toward its end, an enormous marine animal appeared that may have rivaled the largest creatures ever to inhabit the oceans. Every legendary sea monster that followed owes part of its story to this incredible recovery. To understand how this transformation began, we must return to a time when the oceans had lost every established rule. At first, traces of the former world still remained. Familiar ecosystems lingered, held together by biological relationships that had existed for millions of years. But beneath the surface, those connections were already beginning to fail. For a short time, life continued almost out of habit, driven by momentum rather than stability. Then, over roughly 60,000 years, a mere instant in geological history, that fragile balance collapsed. The catastrophe we now call the Great Dying swept across Earth's oceans with unmatched severity. Its origins lay far inland, in what is now Russia, where an immense volcanic region known as the Siberian Traps erupted repeatedly over an extended period. Vast rivers of lava spread across the landscape while enormous amounts of carbon dioxide poured into the atmosphere, reaching concentrations far beyond anything seen today. The consequences spread rapidly through both the atmosphere and the oceans. Global temperatures climbed. Ocean chemistry changed dramatically. Oxygen levels dropped across huge areas of the sea, making survival increasingly difficult. Marine environments that had remained stable for hundreds of millions of years began failing all at once, leaving countless species with no chance to adapt. The collapse started at the very base of the food web. Microscopic phytoplankton, the tiny organisms that powered marine ecosystems, declined sharply. As they disappeared, zooplankton populations soon followed. Small animals that depended on drifting food sources struggled to survive, and the predators that hunted them quickly faced the same fate. Loss after loss rippled upward through every level of the ocean, each collapse triggering another. Some of Earth's oldest marine lineages vanished forever. Trilobites, which had survived for roughly 270 million years, disappeared completely. Reef ecosystems that had flourished for ages crumbled, taking with them countless species that relied on those habitats. What had once been one of the richest environments on Earth was transformed into an almost lifeless sea, setting the stage for an entirely different world to emerge. Although the oceans had been pushed to the brink, life refused to disappear completely. A handful of resilient species endured in isolated refuges, becoming the foundation for one of the most remarkable recoveries in Earth's history. The rebuilding process was anything but quick. Millions of years passed before marine ecosystems regained their complexity, but when they did, they looked nothing like the world that had existed before. The early Triassic seas were dominated by simple communities. Opportunistic animals capable of surviving harsh, unstable conditions spread rapidly because competition had almost vanished. With so many ecological roles left empty, evolution was suddenly presented with countless opportunities. Species that once occupied minor positions now expanded into completely new ways of life, experimenting with forms and behaviors that had never existed before. Among the most important changes was the return of reptiles to the ocean. Their ancestors had long since adapted to life on land, yet several groups gradually evolved features that allowed them to thrive in marine environments once again. Limbs slowly transformed into powerful paddles, streamlined bodies reduced drag through the water, and breathing adaptations enabled longer dives beneath the surface. These evolutionary changes unfolded over millions of years, producing some of the first great marine reptiles. One of the earliest and most successful groups was the Ichthyosaurs. Their transformation was astonishingly rapid in evolutionary terms. Within a relatively short span of time, these reptiles developed bodies strikingly similar to modern dolphins, despite having no close relationship to them. This remarkable example of convergent evolution demonstrated how similar environmental pressures could produce nearly identical solutions in completely unrelated animals. As ichthyosaurs became faster and more efficient hunters, other marine reptiles followed different evolutionary paths. Some specialized in crushing hard-shelled prey with powerful jaws, while others relied on stealth and speed to capture fish and squid. Every vacant ecological niche encouraged another wave of adaptation, gradually rebuilding the complexity that had been erased during the extinction. One fossil discovered in southwestern China offers an extraordinary glimpse into this recovering world. Preserved within the rock is an adult marine reptile with the remains of another large reptile lodged inside its stomach. The predator had attempted to swallow prey almost equal to its own size, but the meal proved impossible to finish. Both animals died together, leaving behind one of the clearest pieces of evidence that large marine predators had already returned only a few million years after Earth's greatest biological disaster. The discovery surprised researchers because it challenged previous assumptions about the pace of recovery. Scientists had once believed that complex food webs required far more time to reappear after such an overwhelming extinction. Instead, this fossil revealed that apex predators capable of hunting enormous prey had evolved far sooner than expected. By roughly 8 million years after the Great Dying, sophisticated marine ecosystems were already functioning once again. This rapid rebound marked a turning point in Earth's history. The oceans were no longer rebuilding the ecosystems that had been lost, they were creating entirely new ones. Every evolutionary step opened fresh possibilities, setting the stage for even stranger and more impressive marine reptiles that would soon dominate the seas in ways no one could have imagined. As the Triassic period continued, marine reptiles diversified into forms unlike anything the oceans had seen before. Some became agile pursuit hunters, while others evolved into slow-moving specialists adapted for entirely different lifestyles. Among the strangest was Tanystropheus, an animal whose extraordinarily long neck puzzled scientists for decades. At first glance, many believed it had been assembled incorrectly or belonged to several different species because its proportions seemed almost impossible. Only after years of careful study did researchers realize that the bizarre anatomy was genuine. That unusually long neck likely played a major role in how the animal hunted. Instead of relying on speed alone, it may have remained nearly motionless while extending its head toward unsuspecting fish and other prey. This allowed the rest of its body to stay concealed or stable while striking with surprising reach. It was a hunting strategy unlike that of most marine reptiles, showing just how creative evolution had become as new ecological opportunities emerged. Meanwhile, ichthyosaurs continued evolving into even larger and more specialized predators. Over millions of years, some species reached enormous sizes, rivaling modern whales in length. Their streamlined bodies, powerful tails, and exceptional swimming abilities made them among the most efficient hunters of their time. From the ashes of the greatest extinction in Earth's history, these reptiles had become the undisputed rulers of the open ocean. The recovery of marine life also transformed entire ecosystems. Coral reefs gradually returned, providing shelter for countless smaller species. Fish populations expanded into new forms, while invertebrates diversified to occupy habitats that had remained empty since the Great Dying. Food webs became increasingly complex, with predators, scavengers, and prey once again linked together in balanced ecological relationships. By the late Triassic, the oceans had become vibrant and thriving environments, yet they were fundamentally different from those that had existed before the extinction. Many ancient groups were gone forever, replaced by entirely new lineages that would shape marine life for millions of years. The disaster that had nearly erased life from the seas ultimately opened the door for evolutionary innovations that would never have appeared otherwise. Toward the end of the Triassic, another gigantic marine reptile emerged, one so immense that it may have rivaled the largest ocean animals ever to exist. Although much about this colossal creature remains uncertain because only fragmentary fossils have been found, the available evidence suggests extraordinary proportions. Even after decades of research, scientists continue debating exactly how large it truly became, adding to the mystery surrounding one of the ocean's greatest giants. The story of the Triassic oceans is ultimately one of resilience. From an almost lifeless world left behind by the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history, entirely new ecosystems emerged through millions of years of evolution. Strange reptiles, powerful predators, and innovative survival strategies reshaped the seas into environments unlike anything that had come before. Every giant marine reptile that followed, from the Jurassic through the Cretaceous, traces part of its legacy back to this remarkable recovery. What began with unimaginable destruction ultimately became one of evolution's greatest success stories.